Well, how often do you see the production value is excellent, maybe even overproduced films, but the story is just so poor. Whereas on the flip side, you'll see something that's, handheld camera, but it's a really solid story even in 5 minutes. Do you see a lot of that, or is it kind of a mixture?
No, mixture. You see it a lot. I mean, you do see, and it's tricky because some of the overproduced stuff, there's certain value there. They may be, filmmakers are aggressive at the festival. They might come out and really support, and that's something we have to consider. I mean, we can't sit here and say we can't. We do. We're a festival. It's still an event and a business like anything else. We also want to put the best product you can out there compared to what else you get. So every year, all the films we have are comparing against each other. We can't look back the year before that. It's about what we have right now and what's the best of what we have, what we feel is best that we can show for this year alone. Not looking at not looking back, not looking at the future, right now. And yeah, so you get some of that. You get these films that a lot of money spent, and yeah, the story is lacking. There's a certain, I guess maybe it's a certain lack of care for that, because I guess they feel like they have so many other elements going for it, which is kind of interesting. You spend all this money and attention to and do all this stuff, and if the film doesn't have a story, then you're spending a lot of money for essentially kind of nothing, right? I mean, so you see that sometimes. It's kind of that can be frustrating. That is kind of because you want to like something so much, and that's not working. And the opposite, you can appreciate someone making something really, really interesting or cool, or very well developed, fun short, or really good short that's done with no money. There's something to be said for that. So yeah, you see both sides, and you don't want to judge too much based on all of that, because it can be sort of unfair. I want to look at a film and say, oh well, they didn't have any money and they did so much more with it than these guys had all this money. They just wasted it. It's not. Everyone is still setting out to make a certain project. There's still a process in place. I don't want to overvalue anyone's process and just assume that, oh, they had no money, so this is so much better, and this one they had all this money, so they had it easy. There's still a process they had to get that money. There's still a process they had to make the film. It's easy to sit there and say, oh, well, these guys had this money, then they're lazy, and that's not fair, and it's not necessarily true. Because we have this discussion. It's like, oh, this, a movie that has all this money spent, you're like, oh, well, it didn't work on these levels, so you kind of have an inkling to be a little harsher, but that's not necessarily fair. You don't want to do that too much. And the same with the film that has no money. The flip side can be said. You could say, well, they have no money, but they also didn't raise the money. They also maybe could have. They were maybe scared to make that kind of film. I mean, there's so many things you can really discuss on that front. But the bottom line is we don't know anything about that stuff. So if we get too much into that and you're judging based on stuff you don't even know about, you gotta stay away from that. Go back to what is the movie? Do you like the film? Does it fit in the program? And kind of keep it simpler and go back to that. Because if you get into too much of this hearsay and kind of thinking too much about what it could be, I don't know anything about that stuff. We don't know these people. We don't know anything about that real history of their film and how the film came to be. So to start assuming that stuff, I don't think it's really that fair. So that's something you always kind of have to guard against and think about. But the discussions are had. We definitely have those discussions.